tariffs. Not really sure how 10% tariff on Chinese goods is going to affect fentanyl. I don't just really see the logic there, but that's a pretty good. And then here, so this is actually a good segue, because progress on the situation on our southern border, progress on the situation on our northern border, which were tariffs, 25% tariffs that were announced to be added to Mexico and Canada, with 10% tariffs on China. As of yesterday, the Canada and Mexican tariffs have been paused. Yeah. I guess Trudeau and Sheinbaum and Trump and everybody got together and did a big kumbaya, and now they've all agreed to not do those tariffs with caveats. There's a bargain to be struck here, which is Mexico has to support, I think, what was it, 150,000 troops? No, that sounds like too many. I forget how many troops.
Maybe
Mexico has,
maybe.
Yeah,
15,000.
15,000.
I think 15,000.
Mexico has to supply troops, however many that is, to the southern border, to act as kind of like border patrol on our behalf, as well as Canada has to do kind of a similar thing. Says it 10,000?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here is the caveat.
On the northern border.
They already had 10,000 troops at the border.
Yeah.
They were the negotiations that Trump had with Trudeau was what they were already doing, right? Yeah. So, and then Trump came out, I make the best deals. I broke their back. I changed it. I changed everything. I threatened them, and they complied to me. And it's like, but Trudeau is like comes out. It's like, yeah, I made a deal. It's like we're literally doing the same thing.
So like because they're mature and gonna save face. I wish they weren't. I wish that Sheinbaum and Trudeau were as petty as Trump, because like I would love to see them like just be petty back. Yeah. But they're like, well, no, like obviously this is gonna like prevent a huge economic collapse. So we're obviously gonna do this because it would prevent an economic collapse both in America, Canada, and in their own country of Mexico for Sheinbaum, and in Canada for them. But here's the thing.
Mexico has already created new pacts, and Canada has already made new pacts with the European Union and with Ecuador.
They should both just win BRICS and get it over with.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Let me adjust my mic stand real quick. It should be noted still that Trump apparently still does not know what a tariff is. And here we go. This is economics professor. Nope, I'm going to bleep out my last name. Economics professor Tyler here to give you a little lesson in economics. A tariff is not a tax on another country. So say if I'm going to add a 25% tariff to Mexico, say I'm Trump, I don't like Mexico because I'm racist, and I want to add a 25% tariff on all Mexican goods coming into America because I want to stick it to Mexico. That's not what a tariff does. A tariff,
you're stupid.
You're dumb. A tariff is literally a tax on importers, not exporters.
Yes, it's an import tax.
An import tax on the companies buying the goods from that country. So if you take Mexico, for example, if Mexico sells us, I don't know, avocados, great, avocados from Mexico, they sell us an avocado. Say they sell us an avocado at a buck a piece. Just keep it easy for the math. That's how much they usually sell them for. Yeah. And then we add a 25% 25% tariff on that. That doesn't mean that Mexico loses 25% or has to pay 25% more. That means that like fucking Fry's or whatever the company is, Kroger, that's buying the avocados from Mexico, they have to pay 25% more. The American company has to pay the 25% tax and then give it to the government. And it has to go to the government.
Yes.
The tax does. But then they, like any business would, is not going to just absorb and eat that cost. They're going to pass that cost on to the consumer. Yes. The avocado is now going to be sold. So you buy for $1, you sell for $2. Well, now you buy for $1.25 because you got charged that 25% import tax. So now you're going to buy for $1.25, sell for $2.50. So you, the consumer who's going to the grocery store to buy an avocado, last week you bought them for $2. Now you're buying them for $2.50. Yes. That's how a tariff works. Yes. Imposing a tariff on another country does not affect the other country. It affects you. And there is like a legitimate reason to impose tariffs. And to impose a tariff is if you are also producing avocados in California and Mexico is producing avocados and Mexico is selling Kroger avocados much, much cheaper than a Californian avocado, you would then want to impose a tariff on Mexico's avocados to equalize that, to provoke and to stimulate American trade and to provide incentive for American consumers to buy American products. There is a reason for tariffs. That's not why Trump is doing it, and Trump seems to not really understand it to this point what a tariff is.
Here's an even better example, one that'll actually hit home. Ford, the auto company, right? Ford used to produce in America. GM used to produce in America as well, in Detroit, and I think they still do.
There's some manufacturing in Detroit, not very much,
Volkswagen,
most of it's in Canada now,
produces
actually.
In Brazil, Mexico, all these different countries.
Korea and Canada,
Yeah. So imagine this. I, as Ford, want to. So for us to make more profit, what we're going to do is we're going to move our facility from, I don't know, Indianapolis to Mexico, Guadalajara, right? What the cost that to make that car in Mexico, and a lot of times they're not manufacturing, they're putting these things together in Mexico. But say, just to make it easier, they're manufacturing everything. The whole production is moving. It cost $10,000 to make that car. They're now going to sell that car to you for $20,000, so they make a nice profit, right? If they move to Mexico, Mexican goods and the Mexican labor force is a lot cheaper. So what happens there, instead of costing them $10,000 to make that car, it's going to cost them $4,000. And now you're thinking, well, that's good, right? So now they can sell the car for $14,000 instead of for $20,000. No. You are giving corporations way too much caveat. The corporations are now going to still sell it for $20,000 and pocket that extra $6,000 in their pocket, which is going to go straight to either their CEO or a director.
The board of directors, yeah, their shareholders, yeah.
So what happens here is now we're going to put a 25% tariff on those cars, right? On the manufacturing and everything. What's going to happen is now it doesn't cost them $4,000, it costs them, I don't know, $6,000, $5,000. They're not going to sell you the car for $20,000. Now they're going to sell you a car for $22,000.
Exactly.
Right? So now it's even more expensive for you. You did nothing.
But the companies now make more profit.
Yes.
And pay less to make the profit.
Yeah.
So they're getting paid double. They're getting paid on both ends of it. Yeah. They're making money on both ends of it. But you as a consumer are being fucked.
Not just because of that. Because that tax that they pay to the government's going to flip around and you give it subsidize, and they're going to help subsidize Ford. Yeah. So all of that money is going back to Ford. So you are getting screwed by the consumer. The only thing that's going to rise, the only thing that's going to change is you're going to get a 15 to 25% increase in everything.
And we're already seeing that, right? At the grocery store and others. But it's also, let me do you one more. It's also a little more complicated than that. And it's also worse than that, because in both these instances of the avocado being sold from Mexico to America and the car being manufactured in America, a car is not just one unit. A car is 10,000 pieces, 10,000 components made in different plants around the country, different plants around the world. And a lot of times these will go back and forth across the border multiple times. And so they're getting hit with those tariff import charges every time. So it's like some car parts will go back and forth 6 times before they actually make it into a final car, because they're manufactured in a plant in Mexico, then they're assembled in a thing in America to go back to Mexico to be for that chassis to be placed onto the larger like chassis body, to that car to go back to Detroit for it to be like finally fitted with upholstery to go back, and so on and so forth. And so like each one of those times you're getting hit with that tariff. The American company or the consumers are being hit with the consequences of those tariffs. So it's not just like a simple like, oh, just an extra 25% tax or whatever. This will have like huge ripple effects. And make no mistake, this will cripple the American economy.
It will cripple.
Between Canada, Mexico, and China, that's 40% of all of our trade. In fact, majority of our trade comes from Canada and Mexico. These tariffs aren't suspended, they're just paused.
Yes.
They're going back into effect on March 4th, though in a little less than a month, these tariffs are going to go back into effect unless more negotiations can happen. So like a lot of our goods come from Canada and Mexico and China. Between those 3 countries, almost half of all of our goods.
Yeah.
And those are the 3 countries being hit with these steepest tariffs. Yeah. So you're going to see, like, if you think the eggs right now are expensive, just wait. It's going to be literally everything.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be everything. This will 100% strangle the American economy. Yes. And not for nothing, the economies of both Canada, Mexico, and China. This will create like a global depression.
Here's the thing. Mexico and Canada can easily take their trade elsewhere. And then
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because like Mexico and Canada are our biggest importers. We are also pretty, not to the same extreme extent, but like they're our biggest trading partners. That goes both ways.
Correct. But what they can do is they could at least diminish the amount their economy is going to collapse, right?
Yeah. So they won't be hit as hard as we will.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of like, okay, if their economy is gonna get 10% more expensive, if they make deals with other countries, it's only gonna get 5 more, and it's doable for them, but for us, it won't be.
Well, because we're hitting it from all sides,
exactly.
Right? So Mexico's only getting American trade, but they're going to be unaffected by the Canadian trade or their own Chinese trade.
Exactly.
Whereas we are getting tariffs.
And they could just look elsewhere. They could be like, all right, Mexico's be like, all right, we're just going to do more trade with China.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. More trade with Brazil.
More trade with Brazil.
Korea, Thailand, Vietnam,
South Africa, Saudi Arabia. I think the best place to actually use tariffs in a political sense, if you want to use tariffs properly, is in instances like World War II. World War II, the U.S. Was trying to stay away from German goods. There's a lot of like negativity associated with buying from Germans, blah blah blah. But back to Ford. Here's a big German fucking Nazi prick was Henry Ford. Mm-hmm. When we were banning, and Coca-Cola too, when we basically stopped trading with Germany for a bit, Henry Ford was still making things for Germany. He was Coca-Cola, so they couldn't sell Coke anymore to Germany. But what they did was invent Fanta, right? So what you can do is you can place crazy tariffs on Germany that will de-incentivize.
Yeah, that's the point of it.
Yeah, de-incentivize those companies from selling to your allies, because again, private companies are going to do profit. They don't give a fuck who it's with.
Yeah, they're going to pass that on to the consumer. There's no world in which, because that's always the thing, is like, well, the company has two choices. They can either absorb the cost or pass it on to the consumer. In no fucking reality are they, as a company, ever going to absorb that cost when they have the opportunity to pass it on to the consumer. They will just price gouge and raise the prices for you. Yeah. Always, 100%. I want to shout out Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, the article is entitled "Donald Trump's Trade Tariffs on Canada." Yeah, we'll put this article because the article is titled "Donald Trump's Trade Tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China Explained Visually," and it has a graph here, which is just
I'll put up the graph too.
Yeah, it's just it perfectly explains kind of like basically what we just said, right? So their example is a Chinese exporter, because this 10% tariff on China was not paused, so this is in effect. So now, if the example is if Chinese exporter makes jeans that they then sell to the United States. So look at the band of your jeans, and a lot of them will say "Made in China." Yeah. That's not a surprise. That's so like a company, like American companies like Walmart and Target or whatever, they buy from Chinese exporters. They make their jeans, and a lot of your consumer goods are made in China. In this case, in this example, jeans. They were to sell them to Target for $10. Target would sell them whatever the original markup would be. With this 10% tariff, now these jeans, Target has to pay $11 for them. The American company, the importer, has to now pay that tariff, like we already said, which Donald Trump still kind of doesn't really seem to understand. So now the American importer has to pay that extra $1. It's a $1 tax that then goes to the federal government.
So if those jeans were $30, you're going to be paying $35 for them now.
Yeah.
They're not going to take the brunt of the force.
You know what I mean? They're not going to like eat that cost. So this just, we'll put this graph here, but it kind of perfectly explains it. A tariff, a 10% tax made the $10 jeans now $11. So then where they would originally, so if they were making $9 profit on a jeans before, they were selling them for $19. Well, now they're going to sell them for $20 because they're going to keep their profit the same or grow it.
And I do have to say that there's one more caveat to this, and that is just like when COVID happened, COVIDflation or whatever it's called, a lot of companies rose their prices more than what it was actually costing them.
Yeah, they were all price gouging. Yeah.
Right. So they're going to price gouge you. So instead of, say, if it was 10% and the jean cost went from $10 to $11 for them, what's going to happen is instead of that jean costing instead of $30, it's going to cost $31. They're going to say it's going to cost $35. Yeah, and we have to because of the tariff. But really now they just rose their prices because they had the opportunity to. So now not only are they sending tax money to be subsidized later on, they're also increasing the prices, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and that's just the predatory nature of capitalism.
Exactly.
So like, yeah, this, and we haven't really talked about like the capitalist side of this. Well, I guess we have a little bit, but that's that's kind of what we alluded to earlier, where a company is never going to absorb that cost. The company will always pass the cost on the consumer because they don't care about you. They just care about their shareholders and their CEOs and them making as much profit as they possibly can. That's
and if you don't believe that, you're a fool.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're a fool.
You're getting duped. So like the whole thing with eggs now being $9 a dozen. I don't know if you've seen the price of eggs recently. I don't actually eat eggs personally, so that's fine.
Pussy.
Not fine, but it's not, I don't know.
I'm just fucking.
There's no other reason than I just like don't eat eggs. My spouse is a vegan, and then I just don't really like eggs, so I don't have that problem of spending like $9 or $10 on eggs. But I definitely sympathize with like if you have kids and stuff, like that's if you do like baking and like a lot of cooking requires eggs. Like eggs are just like a staple in a kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but like I said, it's not just going to be eggs. It's going to be a lot of things. It's when these tariffs continue, as time goes on, we're going to feel the effects of these tariffs in basically all consumer goods, because this 10% increase on China, again, that's 10% on like the gross like wholesale price, not the retail price. So
exactly.
If something is $20, a 10% increase would be $22. It's not. It's a 10% increase on like the wholesale cost, which is gonna like ripple through to the retail cost. So
exactly, and it's gonna come right to us.
It's gonna then it's all it's gonna be the individual consumers gonna pay that. So food prices are gonna skyrocket. Consumer good prices are gonna skyrocket.
Cars,
media, cars, anything that, because like very little is produced in America. And then there is a conversation to be had where like, yeah, America should be producing more stuff. Like that isn't like nationalistic and like jingoist to say like, yeah, there is a value in producing American made goods and supporting American made goods, because it provides, high paying jobs, or at least in theory it should provide high paying jobs to Americans, and like, and you're supporting that, and that's great. And that's why I said like the economic principle of a tariff does make sense in some ways, which is to like increase competition for American made goods and to increase incentive for consumers to buy American made goods. That's like that makes sense. And I don't have a problem with that inherently. I don't have an inherent problem with that, but it's just how Trump has basically like this bizarro dumbass version of everything he does that is going to trickle down to this tariffs as well.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this is a class thing, right? Who's going to be affected? It's going to be the working class. The working class is going to be affected.
Are the ones that are going to hit this hardest.
And everybody, these companies actually prefer this.
Oh, this is great.
This is great. This is just another incentive for them.
Yeah. Like Target and Walmart don't care if they have to pay 10% more for their goods from China, because they know they're going to make that. Like you said, they're going to make it. They're going to charge that onto the consumer and then some, because like Americans don't know how much the tariffs are, or like how much their wholesale cost of.
And even if you did know, what the fuck are you going to do about it?
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. You need eggs, right? So like you need jeans. When your jeans rip, you need jeans. So like Target is Walmart. They're loving this. This is great. The only person not loving this, the government loves this, because they get the tariff. This tariff doesn't go to the consumers. That extra charge, it goes to it doesn't go to the company.
You're getting your taxes increased.
Yeah,
you're basically
just getting your taxes increased like vicariously, like in a very convoluted way.
You're paying these taxes for the companies.
You're paying the taxes for the good you haven't bought yet. It's minority report taxes. It's future taxes.
Yeah,
you're paying. You're proactively paying taxes. So I mean, the government's loving it. Trump's loving it because they're just getting more money. The companies are loving it because they're just going to pass the cost on to you. It doesn't really affect China because China's still selling them for the same amount. It's, you know what I mean. China sells the jeans for $10. The company pays $11, but the government keeps the $1, so China doesn't really care.
Actually, the real winner here is China, because these countries, if this tariffs happen, they're going to have to switch around and do more trade with China. And China's like, all right,
yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Demise of the American imperialist state. We get more money, more trades, and the allies of America turn to us for more.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, there is like that. That's the silver lining there is that there is.
You know what I've come to realize?
Economic incentive for China here.
You know what I've come to realize? Trump is an accelerationist.
I mean, he is. That's the whole thing.
I'm like, honestly, at this point, I'm like, dude, I think Trump is just like some crazy Marxist-Leninist that is like, what if I just speeded everything up? I'm going to say all the things that they hate, but reality, I'm doing you a favor, brother.
Yeah, I have no idea. And so like, who's to say what'll happen? And if these tariffs will go into effect, March 4th, I think, is when the suspension will end, or the pause will end. So we'll see if another deal can be made before then.
I'm kidding. He's not a Marxist-Leninist.
He's obviously not. No,
he's not.
That's like the whole fucking thing about I don't know, just all the dumb discourse on Twitter, basically, of like,
MAGA communists and shit.
And shit.
God, man.
I don't know. Anyway,